Yearning to play a few rounds of Gwent. That ought to set me straight.
Welcome to Commander's Horn, episode 98. If you were fixing for a change to artifacts, this is the week for you as CD Projekt Red released a hotfix that adjusted provision costs of many artifacts with a few other standouts. Once again, there have been two sides of this change from the community POV, and I'm going to talk to it with Gwent's super producer, Markthius, today on Commander's Horn. Well, good afternoon, friends. It is November 8th, although I wrote it here in the show notes for myself, 8th, because the last episode was the first. November 8th, 2018. This is Commander's Horn, a weekly Gwent podcast. I am your host, Dane McBeard, and today I am joined by Markthius, a showrunner, streamer, and producer for Team Aretuza, as well as many other fine events. Markthius, how the hell are you, my friend?
I am doing fantastic. Make sideburns, I should say.
Yeah. So, I guess this would be, because this happened on the Friday, which is the day after when we do the podcast, so last podcast. And for the audio listeners, you definitely need some context, I guess, on this. Last Friday, we did the Friday Fight Night, in which I decided last minute that I was going to make it a debearding episode, of which there have been 3. But this one was a little different. Every time my chat beat me, because they challenged me to a duel in Gwent, and we play, and whenever they beat me, I rolled a d20, and I had this crude map of like sections of my beard that were labeled 1 to 20. And when they beat me, I had to shave a chunk of my beard off live on stream. So
nice.
But it was my wife's convocation. She just finished university, so I wanted to look like I had a home. So I did. I brought the beard down a little bit. I kept sideburns, but it's all growing back now at this point. But it's very close.
It's fitting. It works for you.
It's very close. But yeah, juxtaposed to you in this particular podcast, I think there's some people maybe think that the names are wrong.
That's right. I have the beard now.
Yeah, this is definitely not how it usually goes. But Markthius, thanks so much for coming in. For people who don't know you, who are you? How did you get started with Gwent? And what do you do on the day-to-day for the Gwent community?
Sure. I am Markthius, Gwent streamer and player, a member of Team Aretuza. I've been playing. I'm one of those rares that didn't actually start during the closed beta. I started playing Gwent right when the open beta got going. I actually started on console on the PS4, and then I eventually migrated over to PC where I started streaming it. And since then, it's been a whirlwind of getting engulfed in this Gwent community. I've been involved with the Wild Hunt competitions, being involved with Mana Burn, and getting involved in Team Aretuza and doing all these shows. You may have seen Gwent Trivia and the Aretuza Talk Show and some of the Russian Gwent castings I've done. So I've done like a little bit of everything now, putting my hands in all these baskets all around Gwent.
For the people watching the video, Markthius is you're a little choppy on my feed.
I'm a little
here.
choppy, yeah.
Is that a normal Discord thing, or is that something a refresh might be able to fix?
Yeah, I should sound fine.
You do sound fine. You do sound fine.
Yeah, my video has been like that the last 2 days. I'm not sure why, but as long as the sound is good,
yeah,
that is
that's
what's good.
Back in the day, you didn't use a face cam on your stream. What was and now you do more often, even though you're kind of so you have like you stream, you are kind of in front of the scenes, but you also are behind the scenes on a lot of things as producer as well. So where does your passion lie? Do you like being as a star of the show and kind of doing your thing and a lot of your signature moves like the sexy sax, which we'll have to talk about in just a moment, so people can understand. But also, what do you prefer to do, because you do so many things on a regular basis?
Yeah, so I come from the world of production, so that's what I went to school for. That's what I did for like the last 10 years, in and out of working in sports and reality TV and all these crazy things. So I was very used to being behind the camera and doing things like that. So when I started actually streaming, it was kind of uncomfortable for me to kind of be on camera. So I had this little avatar in the corner. There was this little Legion guy that would cease to sit in the corner, and that would be me. And it was hard for me to like focus on playing Gwent while I knew people were looking at me. For some reason, that just felt weird, and I couldn't focus on the game. So it took a while for me to come around from that. Eventually, people convinced me to just keep the camera on, and I did it for like a week or two, and I just got used to it. So it wasn't a problem anymore.
So that's really cool. So yeah, being able, because yeah, on the production side, you see the people that are on the camera all the time, right?
Yeah.
You see that,
Oh yeah.
like, so I can imagine that it would be. I mean, but it's funny because like the idea of people watching you play games is like that's kind of like the foundation of like Twitch, right? That's
Sure.
like what people are apparently very interested in seeing, and it's not even just games; it's just all the stuff that's on Twitch, the stuff that people
Yeah.
really want to tune in and watch. It's cool. Now it's kind of like blending. Like now we're seeing sports on Twitch. It's coming in. People saying like they've never watched NFL on Twitch before and they didn't realize how much they wanted it. I can imagine
Yeah,
it's probably chaos, but
it's crazy. We got that. You have the Washington Post stuff. Like it's just everything now. It's just turning into TV, really.
yeah, I know, because it's clear that there's a lot of there's just a lot of people watching, and it's kind of, I mean, I'm not sure if like. I'm always weird with like how things develop. Like, are we in a golden age or are we in like an infancy stage? Like, with like, is Twitch still like in the long history of what entertainment is going to be? Do we think that Twitch is currently at a very, very young state, or is this maybe like the best time to be part of it?
Yeah, I think this is actually a really good time to get into Twitch. I think it's in a really interesting spot where it's kind of in this in between of still being a gaming platform while also introducing all these other crazy things like IRL and all the art that goes on, and now NFL, and then the Washington Post, and all these NASA's on here, which is really cool. So I think it's kind of in this weird in between of like we're still gaming, but we're also letting all these other crazy things kind of usher in. So that's kind of neat. It's a really neat time, I think, to kind of get involved in Twitch.
Yeah, and I mean, like the disparity between guys like us and like people like Ninja, right? Like it's just to be like part of the same thing on. It's weird because, you know, like thanks to everybody watching the podcast, we built a cool little platform here, and then you're on Team Aretusa, right? So we know that, you know, you build viewership, you build an audience, and you know, you make the community your thing. And I think that the podcast has been very successful, and I think that I have been pretty successful. But when you look at the idea that I feel successful, but I'm still on the same platform that Ninja is in, and he's, you know, probably, I mean, I don't really tune into that kind of stuff, but it seems like, because I have no like frame of reference on like exactly how much money he makes, but I know it's a lot. I know it's a high amount of money. So
yeah, he's got like 500,000 subs or something ridiculous.
yeah. So
Crazy.
multiply that by at least 5, right? So it's just
Yeah.
a lot of comings and goings in Amazon. But of course, this is a Gwent podcast, so we should probably talk about Gwent. But before we do that, because, you know, this is Markthius we have on the channel. Like, it's been, I feel like I should have had you on a while ago because we've met before. We met before at Wild Hunt, and you know, I've talked to you and met almost every member of Team Aretusa as well, because I have that privilege of meeting the NA folks, and we met at Wild Hunt. So what was it like, because you are part of Manivern Events as well, who has organized Wild Hunt. What was it like to bring an event like that for Gwent to North America?
Yeah, the first Wild Hunt, I kind of came into a little bit later. They kind of were, I just kind of messaged No Controls like, hey, I heard you need a video editing guy, and then that's how I kind of fell into that. And I just really wanted to compete in that one, and I got to play on the stage, and it was really fun, and I won, so that felt nice. But then the second one was really when I think it kind of launched. That's when we kind of created Maniburn, and then we put a lot of effort into the second event to make it better. It was really cool to actually work with the community so closely. I've done, like I said, production like this for a long time, but when you've worked on TV shows and stuff, it's very different, and like you're very tight knit with the crew you're with. But when it comes to like a community or a fan base, it's very like there's this weird distant wall, that like it's unspoken wall between the crews, the talent, and then the fans. And this was the first time that I did an event where all of it was just kind of converged into the same thing. You know, I'm a fan of Gwent. I'm also a content creator in Gwent, and then I'm also creating an event in Gwent and running the production. So it was like doing all of that was just kind of really a strange, bizarre thing. It's so different.
I mean, you've put it in such a great way that I never really thought about it, because of you know, I've always liked production, but I've always found myself kind of in front of people. I just, you know, I've been a bartender. I've been I did like big presentations for like an advertising agency and stuff like that. But I've always been really interested in production, which is why I started this podcast in the first place. So I just love that perspective of kind of the convergence of everything all at once in Wild Hunt. It's a perspective that I haven't gotten yet. So I just, that's great. Thanks for sharing that as well. And also something I want you to share with everybody in case people don't know you. Can you explain to us what the sax means to you. Why the sax, and
Yeah.
how does it jive with the Legionnaires, or are they two completely independent concepts?
It's just something that kind of happened. Like, it was one of those things that just, I think one day we were listening to a saxophone song that was like just really good saxophone. We just started talking about how much saxophone is just awesome, and it just blossomed from there. I don't know, it just became a thing. Like,
Yeah.
it's one of those things that like everyone asks me about. I'm like, I don't know how it happened, to be honest with you. It just sort of happened, and then it became an emote, and it just was like that was like our thing. So, whenever we get subs and stuff, we have this whole sax time that we do, and it became this whole big to do, and I don't know, I guess it kind of became my thing.
I mean, it's really good. It's really fun when your community can
Yeah.
kind of help you build that sort of like inside joke kind of thing.
Yeah.
And whenever I think of whenever I think of you, I think of the saxophone, and I also think of the skit from Saturday Night Live where John Hamm is Sergio. Do you know what I'm talking about? I mean, I'm sure you've seen a lot
I
of
think so,
saxophone
yeah.
gifs, but the idea that this guy is cursed to have this dude, John Hamm, who's just wearing like suspenders and pants and no shirt, playing a saxophone with like the greased back hair. And he just like breaks
Yeah.
in through the wall at any time in this guy's life and like rips a sax solo and just goes, Sergio.
I need to get that for my stream.
It's like one of the best. I like John Hamm because he did some serious stuff with Mad Men, but he's done so many like comedy cameos and pieces as well. Just the last thing I wanted to say that probably is not
That's
Gwent
fantastic.
related, but it is saxophone
That's okay.
related.
That's right. A lot about my channel is not Gwent related. That's the fun thing. It's like everything I do is in Gwent, but yet all the conversations we have in the channel have nothing to do with Gwent whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean that's some of the best content creators do that. I remember that
Yeah.
I used to listen to a podcast called Podcast Beyond. It was about PlayStation. This is before it moved to its own independent thing, but it was IGN's PlayStation podcast. And they would talk about this guy who would play Call of Duty, and he would never ever comment on what was going on the screen. He would always tell like some irreverent non sequitur story about being like chased by a bear or like just something absolutely ridiculous. And I just remember like it's always that much more interesting to have stories and dialogue, I think, with your fans. And I used to be better at it. I feel like I'm really wrapped up in the games these days, but I feel like building, like having a stream and having a community is like it's really awesome. I just think it's really awesome. So you got to nurture it. You got to have those inside jokes. And which shows are you doing in the next little while? Because you have been part of Gwent Trivia. You've been part of the Team Area Tuesday Talk Show, which I was on Monday. So we just talked very recently, Markthius.
Yeah.
But like, what's if there's anything I'm missing, because you have your hands in a lot of a lot of jars, I think you said. But
We have Gwent Trivia on Sunday. This upcoming Sunday is the season 2 premiere of Gwent Trivia.
Team Aratusa channel.
That's actually gonna be on Flake's channel.
On Flake's
do that with Flake.
Okay.
Yeah, we did that directly on Flake's channel. That's actually that show is actually now with Team Rankstar. So I actually, even though I'm on Artusa, I do actually work with all the other teams doing things here and there. So that one's actually being done with Rankstar, that's the other thing I think is really cool about the community is like, even though you're on a specific team, like all the teams kind of work with each other doing stuff, which I think is really neat.
It's true. I mean, even the casters have affiliations, right? Mogwai's always been affiliated with Fate to Karma. Merchant was affiliated with Complexity. Panda was affiliated with Top Deck and Gwenelman back in the day.
Right.
So I mean, like, there's always been like kind of all sorts of like we've all been working together, right? We all want Gwent to be a great game. We all want there to be like really cool content about the game because we love the game, right? Right, Markthius?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, there's been a lot of changes to the game as well, and we're going to talk about that kind of stuff coming up very, very soon. But before we move on to some Gwenty news, I would like to let everybody know that is listening that this episode of Commander's Horn is recorded live on my Twitch channel at twitch.tv/McBearded and will be posted on YouTube, where you can find me as McBeard. And all episodes of Commander's Horn can be found at commandershorn.com. All of the videos are on my YouTube channel, where I have a Commander's Horn playlist, and our feed is out to iTunes and still currently being approved by Google Podcasts and Spotify. But you can still find the feed on some of your favorite podcasting apps. We record on Thursdays, which is today, live. Start times varying depending on who my guest is, as I want to make sure that everybody is flexible and comfortable with their time, because the podcast coming out at all is usually what I want. I want to make sure everybody's happy when we do this stuff. We usually post the podcast immediately following the stream, so at the very latest Friday mornings. And finally, this episode is brought to you by our commandos.
Commando.
Our patrons at patreon.com/commandershorn. Thanks to Marcus W. for joining the ranks. And if you're a gold patron, let's talk about this space right here. Let's promote your content. You're helping me. Let me help you. I think that instead of the fake ads, we could be doing some real promotion with some of the supporters. So, Markthius, let's talk about the hotfix. That's going to be probably number one as this hit us on yesterday, a day I took off streaming, and actually I was involved with some family events all day yesterday, so I didn't even play. So I don't even know what the landscape is like right now because I was also very busy this morning. But I mean, hot take. You streamed today. You tried to make some interesting stuff work. How was your stream today, and how did you find the game? Did you see any glaring differences in the queues yesterday and today based on like the kind of decks you were seeing?
Well, fun fact, I also didn't play yesterday either. So today was the first day that I actually got to touch it on stream. So the first big thing that I noticed was that there was way less artifacts than before. People are playing way less. So you kind of can dial back on how many artifact removals you got to worry about. The thing about when I stream decks, like I'm sure that you said it before, it's hard to focus on the game and focus on putting on a good show at the same time. So I try to stick to more meme kind of silly things on stream, and then I try to stick to my tryharding off stream. So today we're working on trying. For some reason, we decided let's try to make a completely neutral deck work, and of course it does not. And then we tried to make an all golds deck, which is now completely impossible, by the way.
Oh yeah, right.
But actually, it was possible before the hotfix. You could actually make a completely gold deck, but because some of the artifacts that changed are gold cards that are now higher cost, it was impossible to do it. We tried it with the lowest cards, which was actually monsters for gold, and it just couldn't make it fit. Even by putting all of the lowest ones in, just didn't work. So
Alpha Werewolf being the lowest provision cost, lowest recruit cost. I should get used to saying recruit cost, as that is the actual terminology in the game. It's just kind of we started with provisions, and now we're talking about recruit cost. So we're going to talk about this hotfix, and of course, our experiences with Gwent on the ladder just after this short break. A hotfix was released yesterday, Wednesday, November 7th, that actually changed the provision costs of a number of cards in the game, and then had a note at the end of the hotfix, the post that was given, at the end of the hotfix notes, it said, "This is just the first step and a small hotfix for the most pressing issues. We plan to release an update in December focusing on further balancing the game as well as bug fixing." And yet, audaciously, in the face of the above statement, some people suggested that this fix was somehow some sort of make or break, and that not enough was done. Where all that really was done was a provision cost change, and the cards themselves did not change whatsoever. And it's the very first time we've ever experienced a nerf like this, because it's the only time it could have ever been possible. So I think people maybe didn't know how to react, but I was really surprised, because I didn't even think anything was going to happen until December. And I also thought that this was pretty tame, and it was definitely, it wasn't, caving to any demands or wildly reacting, as the cards themselves didn't change. Markthius, what did you think when you first saw the news on the hotfix?
I was actually surprised too, because I thought we're not going to get anything till December. We'll just deal. I'll deal with the ethnic artifact spam, whatever. It's fine. But I think that it's definitely a band-aid. They were just doing a band-aid for an issue that was so blaringly obvious that was causing some turmoil. I think that they did the right thing there by saying, we have something coming in December, but before that, the easiest fix is we'll make the provision cost higher for some of these artifacts so that it's a little bit harder to make just a completely artifact deck. And that really much solved the problem, because I haven't seen any of those ethnic spam decks all day. And I think it worked in that sense. And that's really all that they need to do.
The interesting thing, I'm just going to go by something that Delta65 in the chat has mentioned. He's laughing, but it's a true thing. like Ethna specifically, Ethna artifacts, I think people on the ladder experienced dealing with this deck a lot. Ethna, as many of you know, does have an ability that refreshes every round, in which she can ping 1 time 3 times around. So she gets a total of 9 pings if she uses them all. And all of these pings allow her to reach 1 point further on any sort of thing that can remove something. So if you have something that pings for 3 and you're Ethna, you really have a reach of 6 at any given time. And the spears just made it worse. The spears and the shields made it so there was no board that was possibly safe from all the customization of numbers that Ethna was able to do. Now, to go by what Delta is saying, is that deploy Ethna is still good. And Ethna is still very, very, very good. But what the hotfix did is take a deck that everybody really just despised playing against, and also people who were playing that deck because it was maybe the most competitive way to play Ethna now get to explore all the world with like all this insane removal bronze units that ST has, and the reach that Ethna still has. I just think it maybe made people want to play more because they knew that they didn't have to face this artifact deck anymore.
Yeah. I think it gave people like, there's other cards to play in Scoia'tael.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good ones.
Like, it forced them to play other things. There's still the other one that we didn't mention yet was the Froth Deck with Skellige that was really, really obnoxious, and that was probably the most shocking change, where they took that and they put it from a 9 provision to a 13, which is like, wow, that's a big change.
Yeah,
that's pretty much an unplayable card now. So I wonder if I don't think there anything cost 13 before that. I believe that's the only 13 cost card now. And I wonder if they did that only so that nobody would play it.
Is it the only 13? Well, I'm just going to quickly go over the hotfix here. I'm just going to go over the numbers for everybody who doesn't have a chance to read anything or maybe has forgotten. The full list of changes, they're not long. It is a number, what do I have? 5, 10, 12, 13 cards that were changed. I didn't number this list, but we have Sihil, the artifact, the sword that grows every time it kills something. That went from 12 provisions to 15. Tainted Ale went up from 8 provisions to 9. Summoning Circle went up from 7 to 8. Black Blood went up from 7 to 8. Ale of the Ancestors went up from 10 to 12. Thunderbolt from 7 to 8. Mastercrafted Spear 5 to 7. Wyvern Scale Shield 5 to 7. Petrie's Filter 5 to 7. Pitfall Trap 7 to 8. Golden Froth 9 to 13. And finally, Zoltan Scoundrel 12 to 15. So yeah, Froth was hit the hardest with an provision cost, recruit cost increase of 4, and Sihil and Zoltan were hit the next hardest with a recruit cost increase of 3. So these appearing to be maybe the ones that, they wanted to make these as hard to play as possible. Gremist is still able to bring this card back, but boy, did they make this hard to put into a deck. 13 points, yeah.
It's not undoable, but we tried it today, and it's just, some of them were just, I couldn't justify that cost anymore because it was just so many things that you can't do now with the deck. Mm-hmm. The problem also is there's so many 4-cost cards that are just so, especially the neutral ones, that just really don't do much for you. Mm-hmm. The biggest problem I have is actually with D-Bomb, because I just feel like that card is a dead card in your hand if they're not playing any artifacts.
Yeah.
But you almost have to throw that in sometimes because it's, I can only fit another 4-cost card in here, so you just have to like throw it in and hope you never draw it.
Yeah, I was running Ethna Shoop, which still kind of works because I only had 1 spear, and I think that might have actually been the only item that I had in my deck that was changed, or the only card I should say. It was changed, so it was still okay, but I was running D-Bomb in that list, and it's less likely that I'll need it. But I went to the 4 slot for Scoia'tael when I'm running Shoop, so I'm already running one ofs, and it's a little scary. It's not like Monsters where it's like they're almost all of them are good. Or even Nilfgaard where some of them are exceptionally good. Scoia'tael has some good ones, but to fill out those last few cards in a Shoop deck in Scoia'tael, that 4 slot is hard. It's usually like the card you're always going to mulligan. So it might as well be a D-Bomb sometimes.
Shoop and Scoia'tael is probably Shoop and Skellige is probably the most difficult situation. Because there's just not a lot of synergy with all the cards by themselves. Mm-hmm. I mean, they kind of work okay, but they work so much better together in big groups. It's really hard to justify the Shoop cost and then just putting one of each of these cards in there. That was the hardest deck, I think, out of all the Shoops I've tried. That was probably the hardest or most difficult one to try to work.
I made a Shoop Warrior list, but I haven't really played it very much. I played it, I think, just in one of the challenges in the aforementioned debearding Battle for the Beard fight night that I did. So I played it once there, and I tried it with beasts and monsters because they have cards that care about beasts and a lot of beasts as well. So that seemed like that could work. But Scoia'tael's really nice because all of their cards, they don't care about synergy as much because they're just pings and removal. So you've got the Archer, you've got the Bowman, you've got the Panther, you've got the Bomber. There's even a couple more that I'm just like, that are like the super obvious ones that I'm missing right away. But lots of pings at 3. And again, like we're talking about with Ethna, that means you can remove a lot of 4 and 5 cost units with that ability. So, I mean, that's where I think Shoop is really good. I think Shoop Hunter is really good. I think that the hand boosting thing is really awesome, especially if you have a way of replaying Shoop, like Spring Hillock even, or outside of Scoia'tael. But the hand buff Shoop is awesome. I've been enjoying Shoop personally. So that's kind of an off-topic thing with the podcast, or with the hotfix, I should say.
Well, Shoop is still relevant. That's I guess how we could rope that in.
Always relevant, right?
Always relevant. Yeah.
So Spear, Shield, Petrie's Filter, and Thunderbolt. If you were running the suite of all of these cards, and there were at the decks that were running all of these cards because they were just like ripping apart the game as far as Scorch, Epidemic, and Shiru. Man, that card having Zeal with some of the cards that don't have Zeal, really looking forward to December because, I mean, does that card need it? I don't know. I think I've said it.
It shouldn't have Zeal.
This is officially the 3rd talk show that I've said this comment about because I think I said it on Monday's show on Team Mirror 2s, and I'm pretty sure I said it to Shin Miri last week. But that one there. So if you were running all 4 of those cards, your deck is now 14 points over budget, which is massive, which is completely changed. So that deck is, if you weren't understanding why the deck ceased to exist, that is why. It is mathematically impossible to run it, and it is extremely hard to even run one-ofs of all of these cards because that's still a 7-point increase. So, that still puts you out of reach. And some of these changes were really interesting because with the Spear, now, I did the math on this earlier, and I hope I'm still right, but if you were running 2 spears and you want to go down to 1 spear, you can't just, you are down to 162 provisions, so you can't just add a 4 cost unit to your deck to fix the problem specifically. And a lot of any of the changes that were by 2 were like kind of designed where you can't just kind of like downgrade one of those spears and still be as good. You have to make a couple more changes than just that. So I think it was just, like we said before, great that the deck kind of just goes away now. But I mean, did you ever try playing this deck, Markthius? Or any artifact centric control decks?
Yeah, I never really got like super into the one that started happening recently. When in the PTR and then sort of when the game launched, I did play an all traps deck, but I used Francesca for that. And I was playing a deck that was mostly just focused on playing traps and then replaying the traps later. And that worked pretty well for a while until people started to like figure out a way around traps or understanding, oh, I know which trap you played because there's only these many traps and I've already seen you play these. Like, so then it got a little bit more difficult, but I never played the full on one that everybody got into. But I think that the changing the provision cost, it seems like it's not a big deal for Spear Tip, I'm not saying it right now, Spear Tip. The
Spear with the tip.
The Spear with the tip, yeah. To change it just by 1 provision doesn't seem like a big deal, but like you just said, like when you sit there and you go, oh, now it's 7, now I gotta really think, like, can I run this and still run all the Witcher Trio? Like, can I run the Witcher Trio and this? Like, you gotta really think about whether it's still worth it to do that, and it actually makes it, the 1 cost actually makes a big difference.
Yeah, and as
sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna go on just to say that, as we said kind of at the top or earlier when we were discussing how the power level of the card has not changed. So if the Spear was good with Ethna before, the Spear is just as good as it was. It's just harder to include it in your deck, and very hard to include 2 in your deck. And right. Witchers, because the Witchers are occupying that 7th slot, and usually for most people, outside of people who want to run maybe I think Xavier is in that 7th slot as well, for artifact removal for graveyard hate. So that 7th slot is like basically spoken for. And, in other games that have like a mana curve and, you're building your deck towards, I want to make sure that on turn 4 with 4 mana, I can play this card that costs 4. the slot is more important in that way, where you want to build a deck that can do more things when you're able to actually spend the resources to do them. But in Gwent, it's different. In Gwent, it's if you can't really just build a really low to the ground deck specifically, and you don't get really the benefit of doing that. So that the curve, or I should say, would you call it a curve? Like the way you build your deck in Gwent? I mean, I don't think curve is the right word.
No, it's just so different the way you build in there. It's like, I mean, I compare it to when you're comparing it to other games, you just like, you don't have to worry about the cost necessarily of something. You're worrying about a mana cost or something, or a land cost or whatever. But in here, it's like the power doesn't really make a big difference in your decision. It's more of the provision cost that makes your decision. So it's really interesting how they're going to nerf cards or buff cards in the future. Like, are you going to buff and nerf the provision, or are you going to do it with the power? Because then I feel like if you're going to buff a power, then you have to also raise its provision cost, right? Because it just makes sense to do that. So I'm wondering, like, especially with the Witcher trio, I'm sure they're going to change. I have a feeling that they're going to change because it's a problematic card in the sense that every deck runs it. It's like an auto include, and you never really want auto include cards.
Yeah, exactly.
In like every single faction. So I feel like they're probably going to make some sort of change there. But again, I wonder is the change going to be to the provision cost, or is it going to be to the power cost of the Witchers? Like, if we make them weaker, but let's keep the provision cost, then you have to kind of be like, wow, that's not as strong as it was. Is it still worth doing? Like, it's so difficult to, I guess, even predict how they're going to do that.
Yeah, because I mean, the first thing that I think of when I play a card is like, is this worth it? And like, what does worth it mean? Like a card that I'm trying to think of a really good example, because I was playing this Gold Rush Arena mode, and we're going to talk about that as well. That was like a new thing that happened this week. Today, I think, even that news was released. But I was looking at the cards as like, would I put this in my deck if it was less provisions? Like, how do I feel about it? The cards that I feel like I'm usually the most critical about are the ones that cost 4 provisions, because at that level, at that recruit cost level, that's where I want to squeeze the most value out of it, because those are the cards that I may be playing in round 1, or I'm trying to use more independent cards that are less combo based, depending on the faction I'm playing. But when it comes to like something like, I'm trying to think of like Heme Flaminica. I mean, I'm trying to think of a card that I feel like I would play it because it makes sense, but it costs too much to play it, even though Heme Flaminica is not an expensive card. We know that they're willing to go as low as 5 for a gold card. So I wonder, because, you know, if a card is not, like, one of the things that I feel is great is that, like, Lacerate doesn't really have a ceiling, and Froth doesn't have a ceiling. And you guys may think that that is not great, but the idea that if you play a certain way and you lean into a certain strategy, you can get a lot more value out of cards. And it's not just this one provision point equals this much strength. And it just changes min-maxing a little bit. It changes text a little bit. I think it's important for there to be these cards with really high ceilings at certain provision cost points.
Yeah, I think weather, what you mentioned, is a good example of that, because I've tried several times to make a weather deck, and when you talk about making a weather deck, it's really hard to go full on weather. So if you want to go full in on, you know, rag or with the frost or fog or whatever, like, I've tried to put all of them in, and it's just like impossible. At 7 cost, it's ridiculous. Or they're not 7 actually, they're 8.
They're 8, yeah, and
which is insanely high, and it's like, when you weigh what they do, so if you put fog in there, fog is only going to last for 4 turns, and then you could play cards that will extend that, but is it really worth the 8 costs to keep that? There's so many better 8 cost cards that will have instant satisfaction. It's like, I can't justify making a solid weather deck yet, and that actually kind of makes me a little sad, because weather was always one of my favorite things to do with Gwent. So I hope that, if anything, maybe that changes, maybe lower that a little bit, or make its effect longer. Like, I can justify some of the other ones. Like, the one that I actually think is ridiculous is Skellige Storm, because it's a very high cost. It only lasts for 2 turns, and it'll damage everybody on the road by 2. Well, I could play Lacerate for less than that and damage everybody on the road by 2. So actually, it doesn't even damage everybody by 2. It damages everybody by 1.
Twice.
So after 2 turns, it's basically just a Lacerate anyway. So I could just play a Lacerate instead of that. What's the point of playing that card? So, like, there's cards like that don't really make any sense to me. Why you would even consider putting that in your deck?
I mean, the only consideration is that it would work because it's like 2 instances of damage for something like Dagger or 2 Blades, or for like what is it, the Greatsword now that functions like Old Axeman. But even then, the like what you're saying is like the cost you pay to put Skellige Storm in your deck is ridiculous, but there's no real row effect. There's not any there's not a lot of units that care about row effects, which is like unexplored territory in the game, and I expect that there will be one day. But yeah, weather is the best example, I think, of something that I would probably play if it was less. And if you think that the Mastercrafted Spear is seeing, like, you see the Mastercrafted Spear less, and the Mastercrafted Spear is still really good. It's an engine. It does a lot for you. You can set up all sorts of stuff. At 7, I would play the weather. I would play weather maybe at 7. I think it's it dictates what your opponent does a little bit. It dictates on what they might play first. Many times I've commented on, I'm still want to explore it because the weather doesn't tick unless it hits something. So as long as it's there, the row is unappealing to play on, so you can play more row stuff. And also, to go back to what we were talking about with Shoop, Shoop's Shoop Hunter, my favorite one, has apply a random row effect to an enemy row. You pick the row, but the row effect is random. And man, Ragnarok and Dragonstream, I don't know if I'm just crazy lucky or what, but I got that a lot. I got Skellige Storm too a lot, but I almost never got a Bronze Weather. I'm actually trying to remember a time where I got a Bronze Weather. But Shoop is like the next best thing to Woodland Spirit because he comes down as a 4-point botter that drops drops a hazard on your opponent's board. And then I've been running Dragonstream, and a little bit of Roast, and like Nivellin and the Vride Brigade, as well as no Ragnarok, but I find that just those two things, what Shoop can do and Dragonstream, also the backup of Shoop Hunter, are like all good things, by the way. Like he always hits 13 one way or another. But the row is really, really good stuff because it influences. If you can get two things going, first of all, there's a contract for weathering your opponent's board completely, especially weathering over weather. So got those contracts and achievements.
Oh, I did that one, actually. I did a double Ragnarok with Francesca. I didn't know. We discovered that you could replay Ragnarok with Francesca, so you could double, which was really, really killer on a round 3.
Yeah, I've been hit with that. I've lost one game, only one opponent of mine in the last 200 games has actually played Fran double rag, but it is out there. There's a lot that's still out there. It's still, I mean, for me, I am tryharding a little bit off stream, but I'm only rank 9 right now. And I know that there's a couple people out there. I know that I still don't think anybody is rank 1 yet, because I know that Mago GX, who is number 1 on the ladder, has a hard time queuing. And I know that queue times for people that are really high on the non-pro ladder, I think, are getting really high. How have you felt about the ladder grind as far as the rank? Have you cared about it? Have you tried to unlock your MMR?
So I'm in the pro side. I finished all my unlocking MMRs. The thing that I actually don't care for over there is that I'm forced to play the pro ladder. I kind of like before where I got to pick, because when I want to just experiment or mess around with decks, I have to play in casual. I can't take it to just a regular ladder scenario. I have to play it in the pro ladder. So this season, my pro ladder score is not really fantastic because I didn't realize that until like halfway through doing it, that, I'm actually destroying my pro ladder ranking by playing this way. So that's good. It's really, really, really difficult to queue. Once you've gotten that full MMR, it's really hard to queue up with that. I can barely play Nilfgaard anymore in regular or in the ranked match because I can't find a match, because it's kind of on the lower side, just that faction for me. And so I can only play it in casual. I cannot play it in ranked. It's just I will sit there for 20 minutes, 10 to 20 minutes, waiting for a match to connect me. Yeah, and that's kind of wild. So
that's not good. That is an issue. No. I would say, and hopefully it's something that I've heard. The queue times are just it doesn't affect a lot of people, but the pro ladder has more people in it now than it will in, like, I think next pro season, because I'm pretty sure only 500 people are going to stay. But right now there are more than that. And it's weird if there are more than that now, if queue times are, it could be an algorithm thing. It could be an MMR thing. Like you were saying, your Nilfgaard MMR specifically is keeping you from finding games in pro rank. And, I want to hope that it's more about, fixing a couple of things on the back end than there is, players playing. That would be just not very good, because, we do have arena, we do have casual, we do have ranked, we do have pro. That's 4 splits in the audience for Gwent. And I would love for the game to be able to support that all the time. But, that's the end of the sentence, I guess. I want Gwent to be able to support 4 separate queues for their audience at all times. And
not everybody wants to play a certain thing, right? Not everybody plays arena. Not everybody wants to play ranked. Not everybody wants to play casual. And then I feel like I just said on the rank side, it's like, well, I didn't always want to play. Like it was nice to be in the pro rank, but I don't always want to be playing in pro rank. Sometimes I want to relax and try to grind a different ladder. It was weird also starting out that way. I think that for the first week or so, even everybody in R2s, we were a little confused about how the ranking system was actually working because it wasn't very clear. We all started at rank 0, and they're like, are we? And then like we weren't moving from there. So we're like, are we not? Is it not working? Or but then we discovered rank 0 means pro ladder. It was like, oh, okay, so I guess we don't move.
Rank 0 is the highest. Is the highest rank,
and it's only 500. The 500 thing, actually, I just learned about it. I didn't realize it was only 500. Top 500 get to stay in pro ladder. I guess they're implementing that with this season. This current pro ladder season right now doesn't actually count towards masters or anything. So it's okay that we're like messing around and kind of experimenting. But I think they still keeping the same rule, right? The top 500 only stay.
Well, I know
which is kind of a little bit. Ooh.
Yeah, I know that when Jason Slama and Powell Berger were previewing the reward system, they also showed, they previewed how the ranking system was going to work. And if now you're saying 500, you're not sure, and maybe somebody in the chat can keep me honest. I think that's what it is. Now I feel like I should be, if I'm reporting on this.
I'm pretty sure it is.
I should be super clear.
But I didn't know if it was now or later.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? So they said, Jason Summit, to finish kind of like the thing that he said specifically was that Pro Ladder is going to be pretty wild for the first kind of October 23rd to December 4th period, which suggests that, yes, there is going to be a specific cutting of the pro rank. And I'm not sure where it's going to drop you. So I was not in pro rank when the changeover happened, and it dropped me at rank 20, which, I mean, I didn't play a ton the week leading up to homecoming. It was just a lot of travel and all the other things that I say to defend myself every time I bring this part up. But it's been I've played, okay. I've played fairly well, I think. It's hard for me to understand like what a great MMR is, but I can look at the number one player, who's Mago, who has over 6,000 in the below pro rank, because it seems like the MMRs are larger on the pro rank, or I'm not really sure like what the difference is, but he's sitting at over 6,000, which means that, on average 1,500 is really, really good. So I've crested over for 13 for most of those things, and I've been playing okay. But from 20 to rank 9 I've played about 200 games. Seems like a lot a lot of games to play to go. And I've win streaked a little bit. And I floated for like a day on the stream because it gets pretty binary if you win, lose. So like there were days where I didn't really advance very much on stream specifically. But I don't know. I feel like I don't know if it's taking too long, but I also don't know what they would change, because I feel like 5 pieces seems like normal, and I'm not sure if that's just kind of like how maybe Hearthstone, which also uses a binary rank system, has conditioned me to think.
But how do you get the pieces though? Because that's something that like I'm so confused about, because I haven't played that side of it yet. Like, is your MMR getting you the pieces? Like, is it working like Hearthstone, where like I get stars for every win, then I lose a star if I lose the game? Or
well, it is, but the MMR is a different thing. So like the people who are not on pro rank have like 2 things. They have like 2 systems that they're working on, and I kind of like it in a lot of ways. But your MMR determines how high you are on the leaderboard, but your win rate determines how high your rank is. So below a certain threshold, I can say that it's at least 20, but I forget where it stops. You have to lose twice to even lose a piece of your stained glass window that's filling up. And then after 20 or 15 or wherever it is, then losses remove and wins gain. But if you're win streaking by 3 or more, you're gaining 2 at a time. And then after rank 5, it is absolutely binary. If you win, you get a piece. If you lose a piece. And you have to maintain something like a 60% win rate to actually 60% win rate. And like it's like you have to have like a plus minus win of 25, which is a lot. It doesn't sound like a lot, but it is actually a lot. But also, I believe filling up the final pro rank stained glass window is even more than 5 pieces. So it's actually higher than that. I believe it's 8. So, but that's just from me looking at the image. I actually haven't filled it out yet, and nobody has, because of the queue times at the top of the rank area.
Well, yeah, that's been a problem. I think somebody in R2s was talking about it. They said that that if you drop out of the top 500 pro ladder, you start at rank 5 the following season. So you have to grind from 5 back to 1. And we were talking about that, how that grind is incredibly difficult, only for the fact that the queue time is going to be insane.
Yeah,
because it's just I don't know if it's just an MMR thing or what, but the queue times have just been seeming very long, and I don't know if that's also because maybe people aren't playing in Pro Ladder right now. Maybe a lot of the pro players stopped playing a little bit. I don't know, but rank 5 to 1, man, that's got to be. Oof, I hope I don't drop out. That's the grind.
It's definitely kept people from even achieving rank 1. I believe. Again, this is just kind of hearsay, so I don't really know how many people are at rank 2, 3, 4, and 5. But I do know that, from what I understand, it's kind of like if you hit rank 5, it's like hitting. I imagine it's probably like hitting 4,000 MMR, where like you're kind of like. Of old vintage Gwent we're talking about, where 4,300 was Grandmaster and 4,000 was just above rank 19, and that separates the separation of those two MMR levels were 2 ranks, as you weren't rank 20 yet, but you were already rank 19. So that was still felt like it was like halfway there, 4,000 to 4,300, because you still had to play a lot of games and win at a good win rate, because even though the system has gotten more binary, I think that what they tried to replicate still in the MMR system was your wins and losses still have to feel like almost identical, because you need to really be pushing a very high win rate against the best players to show that you're, ready to go pro.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's difficult. And then don't think that it's a cakewalk either. If you're listening and you want to get to Pro Ladder, don't think it's a cakewalk in Pro Ladder, because it is hard.
Yeah.
It's very difficult.
Well, because what did I was talking to somebody, I think it was Amers, who said that her first game on Pro Ladder was against Tailbot. Like her first game, like after Homecoming, like switched over, she queued in and she queued like right into Tailbot. So you also have the sharks in the water there in Pro Ladder, because you are more likely to queue up against someone who, is how you say good at Gwent. You could say. Pretty good.
It happens to me every once in a while. I get someone that recognizes me and they just like forfeit, and I don't really know why. They just get nervous. I don't know, but it's like, hey guys, I'm not that good. Relax. I play a lot of meme stuff. Okay, just you'll be fine.
It's true. That's one of my problems with casual queue. Is if you want it, like people say, just maybe no one's saying this in the chat, but I'm sure that people might be saying to themselves, well, if you can't find any queues, casual queue does have people. First of all, I have queued in casual to actually mess around, and casual queue is it does take a while. Like I said, I'm coming from a rank 9 perspective. I find ranked games fairly easily. I usually don't wait for longer than 30 seconds. Casual, I wait for maybe a minute, and people will just forfeit against me. Because and it's probably
stakes.
There's no stakes. It's just like playing poker for no money. It's like the dumbest thing. It's just like, yeah, sure, I'll call. Like, it just means nothing. So it's like there's no stakes. Plus, if you make a mistake, you could just be like, well, damn it, I'm probably gonna lose this game. So let's just try it again and make them. So like if I want to make a video about a deck, I basically just can't queue into casual. I have to be queuing into ranked, or else I just have somebody concede in round 2 and I have no video, and I've still been recording.
Right.
I've been recording for 10 minutes, right? So that kind of thing.
I didn't have any problems in casual. I queued faster for casual than ranked today, which was nice.
Well,
because I generally do feel the same problem though, that it takes longer for casual. Today, right in with casual.
Maybe people are just trying out this new world with nerfed artifacts.
It could be. And I think the best. Yeah. The quickest, quick story. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no.
The best forfeit that I've had so far was happened today. Actually, somebody played. They played. What was the card? It pulls a spell from your opponent's deck, and it pulled Blue Dream, and I haven't played a card yet.
Oh, Fringilla.
And he just no, it was yes, I think it was Frangilla that he played, but I hadn't played anything yet that was in the graveyard. So he played that and pulled Blue Dream and instantly forfeited as soon as he pulled Blue Dream. I'm like, well, you could have kept playing. We have 3 rounds to go. Just because you got that doesn't mean it's over. But
here's one of my favorite things that happened to me today. So this kind of segues into something that happened today in Gold Rush Arena. So this was released today, and I think it's awesome that we still have regular events showing up. So this is great. So I wonder if we're going to see a faction battle sometime soon. I had no idea something like this was coming. And it's a fun thing. It's Gold Rush Arena. Sorry about that. Gold Rush Arena is all your cards that you can draft from are gold cards. And this means a couple of things. First of all, you can complete the contract easily. Silence is Golden, which is for drafting an entirely gold arena deck. And I probably think this is the only time you can complete this contract. So definitely queue up for this at least once, because you get it immediately once you finish your draft. But the other thing is, some people were using cards that maybe they weren't familiar with. So in Gold Rush Arena, one of my opponents had me. I was done. Last card had me, but maybe mixed up the difference between the Unicorn and the Chironex, which one boosts and which one damages. So I was done. He plays Unicorn and buffs my unit, giving me the win.
Whoops.
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 So that was like the funny story that I have from today. But I don't know if you had a chance to do Gold Arena. There are a couple of pretty insane things that happen in Gold Arena, but what were your experiences so far?
Well, the first one is that I wanted to let everyone know that you should read the cards before you pick them, because I watch people play cards that replay bronze cards that obviously aren't there, so don't do that.
Yeah.
I also watch people pick shoot when they have duplicate golds. Don't do that. So, make sure you read the card and you think about, you can kind of game plan ahead of time when you once you're like 4 or 5 cards in, you can kind of see, okay, here's kind of what I'm trying to build around here. And you can kind of see, I kind of did that today where I was like, I'm kind of getting one of everything. Let's hold out and see if we get shoot at the end. Or, I don't feel like I'm going to get shoot here, so let's just keep making these duplicates. Like, I saw people pulling 3 roaches, which was actually pretty cool.
Yep.
So that's probably the best combo I've seen so far in that Gold Arena was try to get as many roaches as you can, and that just a casual 20-point opener when you got roach 3 or 4 of them coming out.
Yeah.
Pretty nice.
I got multi-roach today. Absolutely. It was only 2, but I definitely lost that game. Also, I found that Dandelion Poet is basically everybody that could draft that card was drafting it.
Yeah.
So, that's the thing about the high provision cost cards. You just look at it and it's like, this doesn't cost me anything to have this good card in my deck. So why would I not grab 3 Sahils or whatever?
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
The Witchers too, that's a good one to look out for, because they'll pull the duplicates as well. So even if you get 3 Vesemirs, they'll still pull all the Vesemir. They'll still tutor each other out, which is, I think, not how that's supposed to work.
No, I don't think so, because you're
that
summoning.
might actually be broken.
Well, I mean, the way it would work is Vesemir should pull all your Eskulls, but Vesemir shouldn't pull other Vesemirs if he's summoning.
I think that's what I meant.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
That's what I meant, because it's not supposed to work that way. But he'll pull all of the Eskulls, is what I mean. So if you just drafted 1 Vesemir, but you have every Eskull out of it, which still doesn't feel correct, because it says it will pull Eskull. It doesn't say all copies of Eskull, so that still feels like maybe a bit of a broken thing there. But that's something that I'd like to try, to just grab as many of the Witchers as I possibly can and see what I can do with that.
See, I went about it. I mean, it could just be like a space-saving tooltip, because in Constructed, it wouldn't occur where there would be multiple.
It wouldn't make sense, right? Yeah.
But I was trying to make the Crones work. How many Crones can I pick to boost and boost all the abilities? And I couldn't get a draft where I could get more than 3 of them, but I'm pretty sure if I were to, really kind of spend some more and try to redraft it, I could make something where the Crone at the end can do something I have played 6 or 7 Crones. That would be what I would
that would be really cool. I didn't actually think of that one. That's actually a cool idea. I was pretty much just trying to fill my hand with Blue Dream and things that were maybe taking from my opponent. That seemed to work really well. Playing a lot of trying to grab a lot of artifacts, because there's one, there's one gold artifact removal. So if you play a lot of artifacts, there's really no answer to that.
It's true. I actually expected that. I picked Mithril a lot, expecting to see a lot of Sahils and other artifacts. Not that they're all great, but some of them are still quite good. But I didn't see very many of them at all.
Yeah, I actually really like the special arena thing. That was one of my favorite things in previous Gwent was the special arenas. Arena is okay, and I'm not really a big arena player. I do it every once in a while, but when you have a special arena mode, that makes it really fun, because I'm one of those deck builders that likes to go, well, what if we did this with a deck, and try to make it just, weird and broken and bizarre. And so when you do that in an actual arena, let's make it all golds, let's make it all bronze. And I like the one before that did all silver cards, because they're all support cards.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's really interesting to try to all support in a deck. So that kind of stuff is really intriguing. I love that. I wish they actually did that really more often. Or more of the faction war thing, like you said. If they did faction war in arena, that'd be really neat too. Pick which one you want, and then you just get all the cards from that faction. I think that would be really, really cool thing to do as well.
Or the double faction thing that has come, and I think I'm not sure if that has happened once, where you have
the double faction.
You are picking only from 2 factions, and you don't know the 2 factions. But I feel like there is a lot there in the double faction thing. Because especially now, there's so much more synergy with tags right now, with warriors or humans or specters or whatever.
Oh, that's actually good. They should do a tag one where you only can draft humans, or you can only draft a certain tag. would be kind of really cool. Or maybe you pick between 1 and 2 tags and you can only draft those things. Like there's so many possibilities they could do with this. I actually think the way the deck building is now, there and the way there's only golds and bronze. I think they actually made Arena with doing these special things way more interesting.
Yeah.
So I was actually surprised that they started with the gold one because I've done that one before. I thought they would maybe start with one that was a little bit different, but the gold one was pretty popular.
Yeah.
Back in regular Gwent. So
I think it would be interesting
Cool,
if they did stuff like where if you pick, and this is like a completely out there thing that I just thought of right now, but if you pick like lower provision cards in your draft when higher provision cards were like shown to be selectable, you get some sort of bonus on your next pick. Or if you pick something that's like really, really good, it shifts you down a gear a little bit. So you can kind of control like the flow of what kind of cards you'll be offered. But I don't know. I think we need a lot more cards in the card pool maybe for something like that to really work.
Well,
because at the top end of the provision thing, like there's, like you said, there's like very few like 13-point cards or like 14-point cards. So if you were drafting up high, you knew you would get Sill. You'll get Spear Tip and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But, maybe for the future, something like that.
That's actually something that the Hearthstone arena kind of does a little bit. If you start to get some synergy moving, it ends up giving you like a bunch of legend cards to pick from, or it'll give you gold legend cards to choose from. And people think that it's random, but if you actually like look at how you're choosing your cards, if you start picking synergizing cards, it rewards you for the way that you're drafting, which is really interesting. So I wonder if they could do that in the arena somehow. That'd be kind of cool to have that in Gwent.
Yeah, and I think that like and as a general idea of drafting for any game that allows you to do a draft, play a random deck of specific choices that you make in those decisions. The idea is that you're always looking for something that by itself, standalone, you will get high value for these cards. And this makes a lot of cards in games that have drafts that wouldn't be good in constructed play much better because they are reliable stats. You're going to see less like very targeted removal or less consistency from your opponent. So certain threats will stick. And, that's one of the things about the Gold Rush Arena is that there are a lot of like huge threats you can draft, but also like a lot of huge threat, like a lot of problems you can make for your opponent, but they could be drafting a lot of answers. I was getting controlled a lot personally. I was trying to draft the threats. But yeah, you look at the card at face value. So like stuff like Primordial Dow, which is a card that I actually think is not, so bad and constructed. I'm testing it right now as just a 9-point body that does nothing at all. But it is a 9-point play when you play it all the time.
Yeah.
Every single time. It's your highest unit. Sometimes it's your highest provision cost unit for a Horrorquax coming at you and stuff like that. And it's a high unit if you're up against monsters and they need big units and stuff like that. So, but that card in Arena, I would imagine, is pretty good because it doesn't need anything going for it to be at its best. But it is.
No, it's actually great in Arena.
Yeah,
it's the only time I've ever actually sat there and go, should I put this card in the deck?
Yeah,
because I normally would never think to play that card because it doesn't do anything. I don't like faceless. There's no tooltip. It doesn't do anything. What's the point? But that is like the one time you're like, this might actually fit pretty well in here.
Yeah. And the last tip I want to give you all for Gold Rush Arena is draft Leo Bonhart. That card is nuts because when you go all gold, first of all, what happened to me was Morvran always buffs for 8 if you're Morvran, always buffs for 4. So if you're buffing an engine that's at 4, and there are a lot of engines to protect at 4 in the gold color, you create a lot of 8s that Leo Bonhart's just going to swoop in and kill. And if you try to be cheeky, like, I'm going to grab so many series, or I guess Siri and Eskel, you see a lot of those. He can also kill a Witcher, so it's not even just killing a unit that's over 8 strength, which is already good. Nilfgaard kind of gets like a discount on that effect. But he also can kill Witchers, which are more prevalent, of course, in an all-gold arena. So Leo Bonhart seems like a monster card, personally. I ran into a lot of Leos.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I didn't play it too much. I want to get back into it a little bit more. I only played it for a little while on stream before I went over to Constructed, but I think it's really cool. I'm sure that in the future we're going to see an all bronze one, or maybe like all artifacts. No, that would be insane.
Oh no, that would be. How would you win? What are you
exactly?
buffing?
How would you win? Right,
artifact creatures. I guess.
Ran into that problem today. We tried to make a deck that only had our only unit was Nova, and the idea was that we would play control round 1 and obviously lose. Then when our opponent inevitably tries to get his card advantage round 2 and passes on me, you just drop Nova, and Nova comes back for round 3. You already got your unit, and then you just buff Nova and hope that he doesn't have Scorch or Igni or something like that. The problem, though, is that I realized, and it happened to me twice, was that if he does figure out a way to get rid of Siri, I now have nothing. There's no way to win this game.
Yeah, exactly.
So I kept going for a draw. I actually never lost with the deck because I would always just end up drawing at the end.
Oh God, that's so. Oh God, that sounds so frustrating to play against. Like
it was really.
You're undefeated, but you didn't
yeah.
win a lot at the same time. That's such a weird thing.
I never lost with it, so
yeah. It's true. I mean, there's a lot still going on in Gwent right now. Artifacts are now like all artifact decks, and this artifact-centric thing, it's a thing of the past. So, that's that's something we can move on for. And future arena modes, I think that's really great, and I'm excited to see kind of as the weeks go on, what is going to be kind of reintroduced in the homecoming space that we lost in Vintage Gwent. So
Absolutely.
Faction Wars and stuff like that. And there's lots to still talk about, of course. And I'd love to know what you in the chat are all thinking about. And if you have any questions for me or Markthius, any topics you'd like us just to discuss as we wrap up the show here, let us know. But we're going to go into the community section here right now with Markthius. So let us know. Tag me in the chat, @McBearded, and we'll talk in just a moment. Once again, we are supported by our commandos. Our patrons at patreon.com/commandershorn. Thanks for all the support, my friends. I would like to know what you guys are thinking in the channel, but before we go into that, because I know that it takes time sometimes for these questions to come into the chat, I wanted to ask you, Markthius, what you think about reveal, specifically RNG in Gwent right now. Do you think that reveal is something that is pushing the boundaries of what the community is able to tolerate? Do you think that reveal is in a safe place, or Morvran is in fact the culprit, making that deck extremely strong? Do you think that it is more of a rewarding a deck building standpoint in the random nature of the deck? Some of the more frustrating cards in that archetype are Darlin Foot Soldier. Specifically for me, I cannot stand that card. But what do you feel about RNG right now, as reveal is showing to be kind of like the person that's kind of holding that banner high right now in Gwent?
Yeah. As someone who's like been playing a lot of RNG because I love playing with Shoop now, I think that the reveal was actually a deck that I actually started playing first when Homecoming hit, because I enjoyed it in PTR and I thought it was intriguing the way reveal worked. Instead of you showing your opponent's hand, I was now revealing my opponent's deck and getting rewarded for specific things. It was very RNG heavy, but it was interesting, so I kind of like that. Now, of course, everybody's spamming that, and it's crazy, but I think that there's definitely ways around it, which is good. But it's really difficult because it's frustrating you thought that having your hand reveal is frustrating. Getting your cards taken away from you and getting your cards revealed and then burned off and like things like that are just so horrible. I've even figured out a combo that you can do with the Viper Witcher where you play, there's a Yennefer card that will put back an artifact or a card from your opponent's board back to the top of their deck, and then you just play Viper Witcher and burn it off, and that's it. It's banished.
Yennefer's Invocation, which is a great card by itself, just being essentially targeted removal in round 3 a lot of the time.
It's a deck that just stops you right in your tracks, I think, a lot of times. And but I don't necessarily think a lot of people get mad about it. The thing about a lot of these decks that people get upset about, and there's a big difference between people are putting this reveal deck in the same light that they were putting the artifact decks in, but I think the biggest difference here is that I can still beat a reveal deck because I know what's happening, and I know how to maybe try to get around that or disrupt their game plan, or you're going to play your spotter and I know that you're not going to get anything too crazy out of me, so it's not that big of a deal. The artifact one was more like, you're going to play an artifact, I'm going to remove it, and then you got like 20 more in the deck, so what's the point? So it's very, very different. But it's really interesting how they turned that deck into just, that archetype is just so RNG heavy. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I do like that you get information from your opponent because you get to see cards in their deck, and I think that is fine. That aspect of it is fine. But I also, but I think that I also think that the rewarding of deck building, and that you are more likely to put like higher cost units in your deck to kind of make sure that you're more likely to win in your reveal jousts or clashes. So I've always liked that kind of stuff. However, the stuff like Darlin Foot Soldier, which is a card that jumps onto the board when it's revealed. So if you hit that in a crucial moment, that's annoying. That one's really annoying. Everything else I feel like I can forgive. I feel like Darylin Foot Soldier. And also the other annoying thing about Darylin Foot Soldier is when I play with it, I never reveal that damn thing. So it's like I'm always it's confirmation bias, right? Always happens to you, never happens for you. So I mean there's that too. However, Nilfgaard is my highest faction MMR at the moment, because it's really strong. I think it still is quite strong. So I mean, Morvan's a big part of it, but it was good to hear your point of view on it, as we do have some questions coming into the chat.
Sure.
I'm going to ask, this is actually fair because this is news we didn't talk about. So we have It's Blood Beastie in the chat saying, current view on the health of the game. A lot of big casters have been leaving Gwent. How much do you think that negatively affects the game, and is Gwent doing well enough? And then he says in parentheses, a bit dramatic, I know. And usually, I mean, the stuff that we talk about the podcast is usually we try to keep the talk about the game usually, and not about the kind of macro universe that surrounds the game. But a lot of the times we talk about content, and it's big news. Swim did leave. He left the game in that he officialized him not streaming the game, which a lot of streamers would not bother to do. But it made it an event, and there was a post by Paul Berja on Reddit thanking Swim. So it did become a big event for Swim to leave, which is you can think about that however you want, but it does not change the fact that he is a large draw for the game. He pulls in a lot of viewers when he does stream, and that does, I mean, the thing about it is the people that leave the game with Swim are fans of Swim, and anybody who leaves, this isn't just about Swim, it's about how streamers leaving a directory affects the game as far as viewership, and how viewership generally helps a game overall. So I mean, there's a much larger discussion there about how much streaming helps a game's success that we understand from some standpoint, but we also don't understand what success means to CD Projekt Red. So this is a company that's basically given every card in the game for free to a lot of people that played this game in beta, right? So, what is success to them? The stuff that they're giving to people who are loyal to the game. So, there are people that would follow the streamer that leaves, and they are fans of that streamer, and they don't care what that streamer plays, they just love that streamer. So it's not really about the game there. And the people that stay because they'd rather watch the game, Gwent, and not a different game, those are audience members that were always kind of here for the game in the first place. So I think that it doesn't affect the game as negatively, but it's no doubt that there are players that are huge draws. Like when Life Coach came into the game, that was a huge boom. Markthius, what do you think about streamers in general and that like game as far as like the outward facing health of the game for people that use Twitch as a thermometer or a barometer for success?
Yeah, I pretty much agree with what you said there, but I think why the impact of somebody like a Swim leaving Gwent is so like an event, like you said, is because I mean he was kind of the first here when it came to streaming. He was kind of a big deal. He did he drew in a big crowd. He was known for a lot of towards the end of old Gwent. Pretty much every meta was because of him. Like he made so many decks. I mean, even when I first got into Gwent, I was playing Swim decks because I was just trying to learn, who's the best player or who's posting the most decks, and I would try a Swim deck. Okay, we'll try that. So he was a big impact and influence on a lot of people. And so when somebody like that just decides I'm not going to play this game anymore and goes to something else, there's this weird thing, and the reason why Swim had to make a video the way he did is because it has to be explained that I'm not leaving because I hate it. I'm leaving because this other opportunity is here and I need to take that. And so I think it was really good that he actually did explain it that way, because like you said, there are going to be people that will watch him no matter what. There's going to be the diehard Gwent fans that get upset and don't follow him. And then there's going to be new people that come in and discover all new Gwent streamers, which is really cool. So in one sense, it's interesting for the rest of the Gwent community, because now I think a lot of other Gwent streamers might get a little bit more light shined on them, and that's always a good thing. But at the same time, you get a group that think that, he's leaving, the game must be bad, and that's not at all, I think, why he's going or anything like that. And I think it's important to recognize that when you're looking at why did Swim leave. Well, he had a better and bigger opportunity with Artifact, and so he decided to take that. It's a career decision rather than a game decision. So it's important to know that difference. And a lot of content creators make these decisions, and honestly, a lot of people in jobs in general make these decisions where, I'm going to make a change because this is
I mean, opportunities, it's usually one or the other, right? Opportunity or
Right.
workplace conditions. And when you stream, you make your own workplace conditions. So it's pretty much exclusively about opportunity and what makes you happy. But obviously with Artifact, coming out, it's going to be a big game. And obviously there is opportunity for growth for people who make content. And there are a lot of people that have been kind of leaning that way. And I think that for the most part, it's going to be interesting specifically in Swim's case because if you've watched Swim stream and like the kind of audience that is attracted and what his chat is like, you will know that there is kind of there's a dialogue that kind of circulates throughout the Gwent community about the decks that Swim makes and how it's not even just that they would be good decks. In a lot of cases they were. Not always. I thought that Spell Nilfgaard was absolutely terrible. But I think that a lot of the decks that he made were actually good. But then that's permutated by a ladder that adopts it. And if it's a large audience, in Swim's case, the large audience will take this particular deck that he's playing when there maybe are, 5 or 6 or 7 very strong competitive decks. If Swim is playing it and has this reputation about the deck now has this reputation, it will skew what you see out there. And there's very few people that kind of can define like specific like daily metas like that. When I used to play Hearthstone,
Right.
Strifecrow used to do this a lot. What he would play you'd see it a lot because he would make it look so damn good because he was such a good player. So there's stuff like that. With somebody who doesn't sharply influence what's going on, and not even so much what you see in the game, but the dialogue about the game. It's like, oh, here comes another Swim deck. And, that saying that already paints a picture in a person's mind. You already know, oh, it's a deck that, historically, when you look at like Row Stack Dwarves or, I can't think of, I feel like I used the 2 best examples that I had.
Okvis deck.
Okvis stuff. Yeah, the
Yeah.
stuff for Challenger 4, of course. How could I possibly forget? But I mean, like those decks, the picture that's painted in the mind is like, okay, so here's what I know about a deck that Swim makes. It's a deck that people don't like because not just because it's good, but because of maybe how it's good. Because It's usually exploiting something in the game that is very difficult to deal with, and we know how that can go with the like Olaf series and stuff like that. So you get those things, and if those things are the things that are on the sharp rise, the health of the game can sometimes be more greatly criticized because these things are in the game, and we saw Artifact Ethna, how bad that feels to play against. So is it possible that Swim's departure means that less of these decks will be made super popular, and somehow the health of the game from a viewpoint of what you might encounter and what you might comment on may change, just because even if somebody is playing something quote unquote, to use a term that is very popular within like referring to Swim and Swim our audiences and inside jokes regarding Swim and to a lesser extent Merchant, decks that are quote degenerate decks. You are less likely to see them. Even if somebody is playing a degenerate deck, it is less likely that it will be sharply represented because Swim himself is maybe not playing it in front of 2,500 people. So I'm interested to see if I even notice personally. I mean, there's sensationalism, maybe you don't even notice it if you play it, but I'm just curious to see if I do notice that.
It'd be interesting to see what he does in an Artifact if he comes up with those same types of decks and degenerate situations, as we say. But
yeah,
I think a lot of the decks that he made too were ones that why people got annoyed with it as well. I mean, from my perspective anyway, was that I watched a lot of misplay them. That was something that was always annoying. It's like he did make some decks that were pretty complicating. Like I think the Okfist one, it seems easy, but it's actually kind of difficult. It was difficult to actually kind of set that up and get it ready. And I watched so many people misplay the situation where it was like, oh, I'm just gonna like take care of this now. Like I know what you're doing because I've seen this 20 times now. And you've set it up incorrectly, so this is easy for me to beat you. And then people get mad and say the deck sucks. Where it's like no, the deck's actually really great. You just didn't know how to play it right. So, but yeah, I think everything will be fine. I mean, there's people even before Swim that had been moving on from Gwent, whether it was going to Magic or going over to Hearthstone or going over to Artifact. Like people come and go. There are people that still split their time. I was splitting my time for a while. I was playing a little bit of everything for a little while during the hiatus of Gwent. There it got kind of difficult, to be honest with you, to play Gwent over and over, dealing with the same thing over and over and over. So it needed a little break, play a few things here and there. So I wouldn't be upset by it. I wouldn't be shocked if I was anybody seeing all these people leave. It's gonna be fine, guys. There's so many of us that still stream Gwent. and you'll find someone else that I'm sure you will fall in love with their decks.
I mean, it's true. Like a lot of great players still play, and they're playing great decks, and they have great communities to follow. And I'm not going to call out anybody in particular, except for you, of course, because you're on the show. Markthius is one of those people that has a great community and plays really fun decks and really cool decks. But I'm not going to call out anybody else because it would be sad to leave people out. So I just think that everybody who's still out there streaming Gwent and having a good time, shout out to you, whoever you are, wherever you are.
Yes.
And
thank you.
Markthius, do you have time for one more question? Because
let's do it.
We hogged that question. Blood Beastie, who asked the question, is very happy with how it was answered, but I think it's relevant because it's a current event. It is a current event that's out there. It was I made a pretty popular Reddit post yesterday, but it was dwarfed by the Berja Thinking Swim, which was a mammoth, one of the biggest topics I've seen in Reddit. So it was pretty big. But there's one more question here from Meow Indeed. I'm going to get this one here. What is the best combo of cards you haven't been able to get to work yet? So for me, I think my answer is going to be Yada Endamoon, Becker's Twisted Mirror. Not because it doesn't work, but because I haven't played any Skellige really. But I think that's probably the combo where Becker's reverses the damage into boost. So Yetta comes in and damages herself by 6. So you use Becker's Twisted Mirror on her and you get a 12-point boost. And there's this other really cool combo in Skellige with Olaf and Heim, where Heim will swap its health with Olaf because it'll be a damaged unit. You can manufacture that. And then Olaf boosts himself by however amount it's damaged. So Heim will swap the health with 1. So Olaf then gets the 14-point boost on his order. So like these are things that I've seen and have played against me, but I personally haven't had a chance to get to yet. But so far the stuff that I've played has worked. It's just consistency is my problem. It's not that the combo doesn't work or it isn't strong.
Right.
I just can't get to it. I don't know, Markthius, what have you been trying? You've talked about the neutral stuff. Yeah,
I was gonna say the consistency is what I think made it difficult. It's because the combos I've been able to do, but it's the consistency of. So a lot of the combos that I've been trying to pull off are ones that are odd. Two come to mind. There's one I've been really trying to work with Hubert a lot. And I was using Hubert in my Ada Shoop deck.
Yes, I love
it. The reason why I liked it was so good because Ada does 8 points of damage, and then if you have enough machines on the board, you can do a ton of damage and then drop a giant Hubert. And the problem is that I was having was that machines were getting removed too soon before I was able to do the combo, or I missaw the line of play because of all the charges that you have to wait for. Sometimes I missed it, and I missed the opportunity to drop the big Hubert. Like it's just. There's so many things to think about in that combination that sometimes you just end up missing it, and it's really upsetting.
Yeah, I think that the skill ceiling on single-use leaders is actually quite high. A lot of people will look at it like, okay, well, if I have last say, I can make this huge bomb play. But if you can utilize that play at the specific, at a very, very critical time, you likely can get the last say that you need anyway, even if it isn't that big bomb. As long as you can use that big bomb to turn the tide of the game, I think that's important. And in a landscape now where engines are safer, because I think that, even though you're still going to see a lot of pings and Ethna is still going to be removing a ton of your stuff, there's going to be less of this, of the kind of epidemic scorch board customization from a unit that's playing 0 on the board and being able to destroy everything on yours. So like engines were always in a really bad spot. I think that there's probably a lot of control out there, and it's probably still hard, but there's still a lot of unit protection out there, even going first with tactical advantage or having stuff like Morvran and stuff like that. So hopefully engines are in a spot where we can see more combos actually be available. And that's like the big thing for me. I want there to be a lot of choice in how I can construct a deck, and if a combo is super memey or just realistically a really strong combo that I always want to be able to use, that I can make work.
Yeah. I think the machines are a little too easy to remove right now. Like I feel like they're just, that needs to be a little bit of adjustment. Maybe make it not super hard to remove them, but make it a little bit harder, or make my opponent work a little bit more and think a little bit more to get that machine off before the charge is ready. Because I kept feeling like I was playing these machines, and if I didn't give it zeal right away, or I wasn't able to give it zeal, it was out. And that just is so, God, I want this to work and I can't get it to work. So there was another combo that I was thinking of too, and I tried this one for a while, and it was the consistency, not really the combination, but the consistency of the combos. What was the problem? It was a monster deck that I was running where the idea was to make Yenkon immune, but also have Adrenaline Rush. So the idea was to play that either round 1 and make copies of her so that you could Adrenaline Rush several copies of her going into round 2 and kind of go for a 2-0, or if you just play control round 1, You do that in round 2.
Mm.
After your opponent does their I'm going to play dump my cards and pass thing, then you drop all that and then move that into round 3. The problem was I couldn't consistently get the combinations of Yen with making a copy of Yen, with making her immune, and then putting adrenaline rush on it. Like, it was a lot of steps that were very low tempo that just didn't end up panning out, because by the time you got it all figured out and you got it down, your opponent's already like taking the lead like way far. So
yeah.
That was a hard one as well.
But I think that this is really important to always consider this when you're evaluating cards, when we see cards maybe coming out in the future, because, you know, I listen to a podcast about Magic the Gathering. I play like the physical game a lot, so I'm very, you know, I love that game. But I listen to a podcast about it, and when it comes to evaluating cards and talking about cards, they talk about, well, this card with this card and this card is insane. But they also say that is, quote, magical Christmas land. And when looking at a card and what it can do, think about what the card looks like when you can't make it work, or when your opponent has the answer to it. And I think that I want the game to have really like ambitious, like huge combos. I want there to be like crazy ways to lock down a game but like that it maybe has like 1 or 2 steps in it, so your opponent doesn't feel like you're just like playing this uninteractable thing. Like we're talking about the artifact decks and the way Shiro works and stuff like that. Like, there's nothing you can do about it. But as long as like you can connect those combos in like a really strong way, I always want them to release those risky cards that the true enemy is the new consistency of Gwent, and we're allowed to have like these really kind of bombastic combos at the cost of consistency, because they're, you know, that wasn't really a cost in old Gwent. There's too many tutors. You'd see the same thing every game, Skellige thinning to 0 all the time, like that kind of stuff. Like you'd see the strategies always play out. And while Gwent still has that no face damage way of always playing all your cards until the end and knowing if you won or not based on your strategy, I think it still can benefit from having a bit more kind of swingy ways to play and ways to set up the board.
Yeah, I like the big combinations, like you're saying. And I think that I would love to see the game kind of go in a direction of allowing that more, because one of the most satisfying things is when you pull off a big combination like that. I like to compare it to a fighting game. When you're playing a fighting game, the bigger the combination is that you got to pull off, the more satisfied you feel, and you did a lot of damage. But your opponent, you're going to be doing a big combo. Your opponent will probably interrupt that combination, and there's satisfaction in interrupting a big combo as well. So the one combo, and I don't even call it a combo because it's a tutor, and I can't stand it, is when people play their first play, they play their Witcher, and then they pull Roach with it, and then they buff one of the of the Witchers so that so you can't use Epidemic. Like, oh, just a casual 21-point opener. We're still doing that in Gwen, I guess. So that's still there. Yeah. So I would love to see that kind of stuff kind of go away. But those are easy combos. I'd like to see more difficult ones, like I was kind of describing before with the Yencon one, where it takes me time to get it right. And if I got all the puzzle pieces there, woo, boy, is that satisfying to get that to work.
Yeah. I mean, that is kind of like the Johnny player's dream, right? You want to win. You want to win in style. You want to win on your terms. And if you can do it, that's the ultimate goal. And then consistency is another thing that you worry about later. You just want to make that combo work. And I think that, the Witcher, the open, at least in current Gwent, when somebody opens with that Witcher Roach play with the tactical advantage even, or Morvran even, I think that at least you have like 3 turns to come back, right? Like, you know that they can't drop 21 points every turn like old Nilfgaard hand buff, thank God. So you know that it's not like a race that you're going to just like never, ever, ever be able to catch up in. And because of the hand limit, you actually have more than 3 rounds to catch up. You may even have like 5 rounds, really, because if you win the game going down 2 cards, you at least get to dictate the control of the rest of the game. So just being able to just like the tempo crush round is round 2, I think, when you're in control. That's the round where it really feels terrible to get just avalanched in points. So round 1, I'm never scared. I'm not scared as much these days. And the more I play, round 1 scares me less. It's round 2 that really terrifies me.
Round 2's tough because you have to decide when to pass, right? Like round 2 is really, really tough. Do I dry pass? Well, you shouldn't, because you probably have 8 cards. You need to play at least 1 so you don't burn a card. But what if you were down to like 7 cards? Should you dry pass? I mean, there's an argument. Like, it's not as easy, I think, to justify dry passing as it was before, because there are certain decks that you should push, and there's certain decks that maybe you really shouldn't push this because you're gonna lose control of this round and end up being down by 2 cards in round 3.
Yeah.
It's way more difficult to figure that out.
It's a really Gwenty thing right now where there are decks that if you feel like you can't bleed them and you can't get, and you can't bleed them, so you would lose the last say fight, and you can't bleed them because they have such strong plays to keep up with you in round 2. But it's tempting if you're at 7 cards or below in round 2 and you have control of the round, and your opponent, like, let's even say you have 7 cards and your opponent has 8 cards, and this is not uncommon. You are making the decision, is what I'm playing right now worth it to potentially lose last say forever? And not just lose last say, like your opponent has 2 cards up, and in a worst case scenario, you just play all your cards and your opponent can just win the round with a card in hand. So like you kind of realize, oops, I went too far. Well, now all in is my only opportunity, and can I even do it? But there's a lot more happening in round 2 now, and I think that's important because before Gwent, a lot of times round 2 wouldn't even occur. So I think that's a good thing, just to kind of like have a last kind of rambling segue into the end of the show here. I do like the pace of Gwent right now, personally.
Yes, agreed.
I
like the pace as well.
Agreed. Markthius, I really enjoyed having you on the podcast. I always have great conversations with the Team Aretuza people, as it is back-to-back Team Aretuza guests here. Shinmiri was my guest yesterday. So, of course, check out Team Aretuza on the Discord, and we'll get a link in the show notes, of course, if you want to join. There's a lot of people talking about that. But, Markthius, you work on a lot of things. Where can people find you coming up? And feel free to repeat any of those shows you're working on this week, especially if you want people to tune in. Yeah, so where can people find you out there, Markthius? Plug away.
Absolutely. So you can find me on Twitch at twitch.tv/Markthius. I stream usually Monday through Fridays at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time is my start time. I'm a morning streamer, so very European-friendly for any of you European viewers. And I work on a couple different shows, the R2's a talk show, Gwent Talk, which happens every other Monday. And then I also work on Gwent Trivia with Flake, which happens on his channel. So that's going to be happening, depending on when you listen to this podcast, this coming Sunday, which is our season 2 premiere. That has Ash Liz on it, Shinmiri's on there, and Lord Bushwick. It's a really, really cool opening episode. So we put a lot of work into that one. So that's probably my most prized possession show right now. So highly recommend everyone checks it out. That happens on Flake's channel. You can go to twitch.tv/watchflake. So he gets a nice plug there as well, because it happens over there.
Yeah. One more time. What time is that happening on Sunday?
That happens on Sundays at noon Eastern Standard Time.
All right, so we are GMT -5 once again, as we are now in daylight savings time. So that is 6 hours behind our friends in Poland and most of Europe except for the UK. So in case you want to check that out, because I'm going to check that out.
Sounds right.
I'm going to check that out.
Yes. You were on it. You were on last season, and I hope that we have you again for this new one coming up.
Oh, I wasn't just on it.
You won by a long shot.
It's funny because I'm a very artistic person, and the art portion of that, like, I did pretty well in that particular Gwent Trivia, but I only won one of the drawings, and like personally, like, I'm like, oh, I thought they were all really good. For some reason, I'm not satisfied with the dominance that I
don't know. The chat usually, that's the one part where the chat gets to pick who wins that, and the drawing is our probably most popular segment. They usually go with the most ridiculous ones. So.
Yeah, no, I like that the chat's involved. It's always a good time, and we've done it live at Wild Hunt as well. So yeah, so check that out.
Oh yeah, that was a good one. Yeah.
But we'll wrap this.
We're uploading.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was just gonna say we're uploading some of the old ones on the Team Rankstar YouTube. So if you want to check out some of the older episodes, we're uploading all those now so that you can check them out, because some people were asking. So on YouTube, Team Rankstar on YouTube is where you can go check those out.
There's a lot of stuff for you guys to check out. It's all going to be in the show notes. Shout out to Team Rankstar. Flake is on Team Rankstar, as well as some other Gwent players as well. Dr. Gur, I believe, is also on Team Rankstar. So shout out to them, because they are really kind of venturing into this. They're seeing some opportunity in Gwent, and they're really venturing in with content for Gwent. So I think that they're really cool. They're really cool people. So check them out. Obviously, Flake is a really cool person, really good friend of mine. So anything he's doing is worth checking out. Anything Markthius has got his hands on, is going to be top notch in production. And great to finally have you on the podcast. We're gonna wrap.
Thank you, man.
Oh, it's absolutely my pleasure. We're gonna wrap.
My pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Gonna wrap up episode 98. So episode 99 is gonna be next week. We are lining up the guests at the moment, and but I will not promise anything yet. But episode 100, I will promise that there will be some pretty cool stuff on episode 100. There may be there's going to be some pre-recorded stuff, and there's going to be a live component as well. We're going to have a little bit of a party on episode 100, and on episode 99, and probably prior to that, follow me at McBeardCH. Follow the podcast at Commander's Horn. We will be explaining how the fans can get involved in episode 100. Perhaps you can leave us a message or something. We're still figuring out the logistics of it, but follow the podcast and follow me. And on episode 99, we will absolutely have the information you need. If you want to leave us a message or tell us if you've been listening to Commander's Horn, how long you've been listening, what your first memories are. It's going to be pretty cool. I'm really excited for it. And there is one more episode to go through before we get to episode 100. So episode 99, of course, is going to be, I hope, as good as this one because these were some good episodes.
Milestone.
There's been some good episodes. Yeah, some big milestones coming up. So we're looking forward to that. And yeah, you can find me at McBeardCH on Twitter, McBearded on Twitch, where I stream at 10 a.m. Eastern time for some of my streams on podcasting. And Fridays, it's been, the meat of my content has been more in the afternoon. I'm kind of sort of in a timing transition right now, but you can find me out there. And of course, finally on YouTube, you can find me as McBeard. And you can email the podcast at commandershornpodcast@gmail.com. And that's it. I think we're good. In the books here with Markthius.
Right.
Thanks so much, everybody. Thanks for everybody in the chat. And to everybody commenting on my beard, I love you. It's not very often that I do a podcast this closely. I shaved yesterday, like with the razor. When's the last time I
transferred beards?
I've never used a razor on this portion of my face in like 3-4 years. It's always been at least
weird,
stubble. Yeah, splash the cold water on the face. The cold wind. Ooh, the cold wind of the cold windy day of Toronto.
Lips. What is this?
Yeah, and I ate spicy food yesterday. Big mistake. Oh man, it burned. So bad. It was worse here than it was actually the spice. I don't know how to finish this sentence. I'm tired. All right, so because we are done here, let's wrap up the podcast. So thanks everybody. Of course, that'll be everybody. Thanks for joining us. Until next time, everybody. Best of luck on the path.